Happy Apple Christmas! Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is How to App on iOS, and this is Jade. We're going to talk about what went down at WWDC today in around about 20 minutes. As I said, I hope you're all doing well. Oh, what the hell? That's never happened before, a repeat of music. Whoa, g'day Pete, and hello Scott. Hi to everyone who's just joining the chat. Let's get into this deep dive, but it's not going to be a deep dive. I'm going to talk about not a lot of the features that were shown today for WWDC. I'm going to talk about a lot of the things that weren't discussed, because it's important to acknowledge them, because they're going on, and this is a developers conference after all. This is for developers. It's not actually for us, right? And these developers would not have been too shocked at anything that went down today because of the roadmap that Apple has been laying down for the past 5 years, and heading up to where we are in, I would say up to about 2022. That's when this merging, this backwards compatibility thing is all going to go down. You might also notice on the screen here today, I've added a little clock up the top there, because this is called How to App in 20 Minutes. And I consistently go over, so I've got to time myself. I've got to be better at that. Okay, so you can see there's my iPad on the screen, and you might be going, what's going on there? Have I already downloaded this? Because it's available, and I normally do download it. I think I will for my for one of my iPads, just to play around with it. Still not sure. But let's have a look at this screen. Let's start here. Widgets. Oh, wow. I'm just going to shoot straight. Look, and I want to put out there first, I'm not saying these things to dog Apple, all right? That's why I want to talk about the things that haven't been discussed, that are happening in the background of iOS 14's release. But the stuff that we've been given, fluff. And it's a minor upgrade. I wouldn't even call widgets an upgrade, because there's something that's been on Android for years, and I don't know how many people I've heard, no, we really should have widgets. So much so that people continue to jailbreak to this very day just to put widgets on and clutter their phone with more crap. Okay? And the other reason I don't like the widgets, looking at this screen here, look where they are. So they're in the same place as, let's get rid of this, and there's my point. We basically already have them. And I want to ask people seriously, who the F uses them? Come on, who the F uses these? Who actually goes in and adds new stuff? I've got different ones across my different devices, but I still don't look at them. I've had this screen set up on my iPad Pro since getting it, and it's only the last week I've gone, you know what? That's better. And that leads into the need to have this last row of apps where everything just gets put into a folder. There's been a consistent theme that I saw in this keynote, and let's get to it now. Do you think Apple think we're a bunch of idiots, that they need to baby us through everything? That we're so pathetic that we can't put our apps into folders? We can't even manage our folders? Like, that's what it feels like. Okay? And I know lots of people who have pages of apps and don't get lost looking for them. So some of the things Apple do, and you know, they have a history of doing things that they think will be fantastic, and nobody gets into them, and they end up scrapping these concepts. It's happened a lot with Mac over the last 10 years. It's happened a fair bit with iOS. It's something that has been consistent with Apple, and they They normally ditch it and let it slowly die. With a lot of the software that used to be connected to Macs and such, there were so many problems with it, and they just let it slowly die away. On the other hand, the headphone jack is a completely different story, because they just took that away, and you can't really get that back because it's a physical item. Okay, so let's break it down a little bit more. I think those folders at the end, sure, some people are going to use them, I guess. The hiding of the pages just seems really bizarre, because look, I was a jailbreaker for the longest time. Those things we were able to do in jailbreak apps from Cydia 10 years ago. Probably 10 years ago, there were tweaks that did all that stuff. So it's interesting that they have kind of pushed these things as major upgrades, probably because there's not really much you can do to make the operating system much easier. I mean, it's the reason the screen has stayed the same with the apps for this long is it just works. That's why. So let's have a quick talk about what they didn't discuss, because that's the important thing. Now, as a developer, you would go to WWDC each year and see the keynote, which is the big opening of the event. And then over the next week, they have all these workshops where you get to hang out with the Apple techs and really find out what's under the hood. What are the plans that Apple or the features that they're giving to all the developers so they can incorporate into their apps. Now, this roadmap started, as said, about 5-6 years ago, of the kind of sort of maybe merging of iOS with Mac. And the developers are well aware of it, because there has been a system in place for the last few years to code iPad apps to work on the Mac. They slowly started introducing the calendar app, the music app, getting rid of iTunes, all that stuff. This has been the slow integration of iOS into Mac, which I agree with. I think it's a better idea to have everything across a uniform system that can bounce across. It's just going to make more people buy one of each device and have more Apple devices in their homes, because that's one of the beauties of Apple products, is that they all just work, and they work seamlessly together. So it turns out to be, it's going to be a good thing for Apple, and they'll make more money. And I do believe the new chips are going to be fantastic. There's been an outcry about the change of chips over the last 2 weeks with all the rumors. The majority of people who are bitching about this are people who like to install Windows onto their Mac. And there was a lot of people saying, I won't be able to install Windows, and I won't be able to install other operating systems. They addressed that. They addressed that in this keynote by offering, God, my mind's gone blank, the other operating system. God, I keep thinking Ubuntu. What am I thinking that? I just can't think of it. Anyway, they've already tried that out. You're still going to be able to install that. They talked about Microsoft being involved. So there's going to be a way, once this transition happens, to still be able to install Windows. So those people who are bitching, I'm sure they're going to move on to the next thing. And I already saw a few comments in some forums, and it was about this. I don't like the Mac, the new look. It looks like iOS 7, too bright and colourful. I kind of agree, it does look really colourful and bright. Looks a bit annoying. It kind of does look like an iPad Pro, the way everything opened, which I'm not complaining about that, because I love my iPad Pro. I do think it's the death of the Mac Air. I think we can say goodbye to that. We'll probably get, maybe 2 more iterations of that laptop, and that will be the end of that computer. The Mac Pro will become, the iPad Pro will become that intermediate between a MacBook Pro So, with under the hood stuff that developers would be talking about over this week, because they're watching all the classes via the Apple WWDC app, I'm betting a lot of money there's been a lot of performance fixes for iOS 14. Under the hood stuff, because iOS 13 was riddled with problems, as you can tell by the amount of betas that have come out and point dot upgrades. So Apple tend to do this every few years. They will pull back on the features, and the features that they do release are kind of a bit meh, still helpful for some people. But I think there's going to be a lot of performance sorting out with this iOS 14. They're definitely trying to make a distinction between iOS and iPad OS. They really are driving that home, definitely. And which is interesting, because here they are then releasing a Mac and saying, well, this is basically the iPad now, the iPad chip, exactly the same thing, running on a Mac. There's going to be plenty of people bitching about it, but those chips are amazing. Intel's so far behind at the moment with chip technology. Apple's just taken the ball and run with it. So that's another good thing. Let's get to the other thing they didn't talk about, which I made a big point about. And this show's about making mistakes. And maybe I was wrong this time on the announcement, but it's definitely happening. So Logic is coming, and Final Cut Pro is coming. And part of this whole combination of Mac, iOS, iPad OS, this is the backwards compatibility. And they didn't need to say it. Now you have to remember with Apple, they don't just come out and throw all their cards down on the table. This is a company who are well known for most of their keynotes to always have one last thing. And for, as long as I've owned an iOS device, every WWDC advertisement within the little app that they show, the little image for that particular year, there's always a bunch of Easter eggs that kind of tell you what they're doing. So they never really give away. And we all know they're a very secretive company. But if you look over, as I said, over the last 5 years, you will see this is a trend. They're getting developers to make apps that are more universal to go across all the devices. And the way they announced that you can use iPad apps on the Mac was just really interesting to me. As soon as they did that, I knew they weren't going to announce Logic and Final Cut Pro, because they basically were. They didn't need to say it. They were saying this is going to be reverse compatible. And you have to think they're going to be pretty thin on products to release in September when the new iPhone comes out. Because already this year they've released several Macs. They've released an iPad Pro, Magic Keyboard. I mean, they've released a lot of full-on stuff very quietly because of the whole COVID-19 thing. So I'm guessing they're holding back on that. They're going to need a few things to really pad out the iPhone. I'm guessing they're going to announce another Apple TV upgrade too. It's definitely on the cards. They're going to go like 4K. I don't know if there's going to be another watch. Now that I've mentioned the watch, I need to say this. This goes back to the whole, do Apple think we're just absolute dipshits sometimes? The sleep functionality, I was really hoping it was going to be something a lot better. Because everything else on the watch to do with health, your blood and all that kind of health-orientated stuff is really solid. And I really hoped that the sleep thing would be really good. But I found it to be a patronizing bunch of crap. It was so like, it felt like something out of the Brady Bunch. Like, I'm just going to change the mood lights on the front of your phone and get you warmed up. Get your slippers ready and have some cocoa and off you go. Bye-bye. Like you're staying with your obsessive compulsive nana. And where was the functionality of like, am I talking in my sleep? I want to get like a fully detailed analysis of my sleep. There's already been apps doing that for years and years. I really thought they're going to go all in on that. But if you are realistic, we are getting to the point with the Apple Watch. What more can they put in it? I mean, the thing's tiny. There's only so much you can do. So it's not really a problem. I was looking at getting a new Apple Watch. I'm probably still going to go for a Series 3 because I just don't need to spend the extra money. So getting back to what they didn't talk about, it's really exciting. I'm super excited about getting Pro apps on the iPad Pro, because they have really put all the pieces on the board for that. If you look at everything together, and let's start with the iPad Pro coming out this year. Not much of an upgrade, really. Was it a faster chip? Some better sound. It really wasn't that much of an upgrade because it really didn't need too much of an upgrade. But the Magic Keyboard being released, that's really it was shocking for me to see them just release that with not much fanfare. But now it makes sense because I've had the Magic Keyboard since it came out. I love this thing. It's one of the best things I think they have released in years. It's changed my entire productivity. I went away for 3 days over the weekend, and it was just such a breeze pulling it out on the train, wherever I had it and pulled it out. The swiping across the trackpad to switch between apps. I've just got so used to the keyboard shortcuts. It really is an amazing $560 thing. But they've released it for a reason. They're priming people to get used to using the iPad Pro as a replacement for the Mac Air. And there's even more evidence of that. I don't know if you have seen the keynote or you haven't yet, pay attention. They've actually added into the Mac OS system, you only see it for a few seconds, the new functionality of the mouse, the little animated mouse that changes shape across apps that's on iPad. That's actually built into Mac OS. There was a few little shots that showed it. I'm sure they're going to let you turn it off. But that, to see that, that's such an integral part of the Magic Keyboard that they've incorporated that into the Mac. And I like the other thing, as I said, I'm not complaining, all right? I really like their balls. That's one of the things about Apple I do like. They do have a big set of balls because they know their client, their customer base of Mac users are going to crack the shit over stuff like that because they're very particular, a lot of them. I don't want an iPad. I've got a Mac. It's more powerful for making music in my studio. And there still are a lot of people that are trapped in that mindset that they can't create amazing stuff unless you've got a Mac or a computer. Yeah, and Pete, you're right. The cost is ridiculous. It is a ridiculous price. If you're just got an iPad and you're maybe just making music casually, or you're just doing music, seriously, that's a lot of money. But I think if you're using it a lot for many different things, I honestly think it paid for itself. It's already paid for itself, and I've only had it for 4 weeks, and that's completely different for everybody. So I'm not telling you to go and get that thing. I would never tell absolutes of anyone to go and buy anything. Everything you do purchase and use has to work well for you. Don't ever listen to other people telling you that you should do this. I'll never forget, because we're wrapping up towards the end of the show, I just want to tell this story. I was in Minneapolis for a couple of years, and I was going around a lot of the band scene there and seeing a lot of heavy metal bands and meeting different people from bands. And this one night, we'd hooked up with a couple of people, and a couple of the guys were audio engineers. And we're in a pub, and the audio engineer guy I'd only met like half an hour before. And we end up just in a corner talking, and a few people walked away. And he comes over, and this is exactly the conversation. So, yeah, your friend over there was telling me that you're recording an album using iOS. I just looked at him like, what's your point, dude? I go, no, really. The first words out of my mouth were, but iOS is actually pretty cool, man. It's a really powerful device. And the dude's eyes rolled back into his head and was just like, yeah, that's why studios use them, and walked away. There's a lot of those people still out there somehow. So they're going to be really upset as Mac users over this iOS integration. But my advice is follow what happens over the coming months. You're going to get your copy of Final Cut. You're going to get your copy of Logic. I'll go out on a limb again and say there could be things combined from GarageBand with it. It could be a reimagined thing. That you can't put these things past Apple. They do like to cannibalize a lot of their products, which is what I'm alluding to is going to happen with the Mac Air. They've had a long history of releasing a product, then cannibalizing it several years later with something else. Like they did that to the iPod Touch, seriously. So they could actually take a hybrid of GarageBand and Logic and turn that into the iPad Pro app. Because it's not that far out of the imagination. If anybody does have Logic on Mac, they would have noticed that a whole bunch of functionality from GarageBand has been included in the latest update. So they're already starting to do that on the Mac. So this is something that could be on the cards as well. I still am going to stick by my prediction that both of these apps, when they come out, they will be between $9.99 and $19.99. And the reason they will do that is to undercut LumaFusion or a Pro Cubasis. They have a history of undercutting apps that are already on the market, or they buy them out and then repackage them, like the Shortcuts app, which used to be called Workflow. There's a long history of Apple buying out apps and then integrating them back into their iOS. God, if I have a look quickly now, I'm not going to do that. I'm sure there's like about 6 that are stock standard that they've done that over the years. So that's about it. It's not a disaster. It's not bad. It's not fantastic. It is just meh. But I think towards the end of the year, we're really going to be spoilt with these audio and video production apps coming to us. And the other thing before I finish is what they're trying to do is they want to push people onto iPad Pros. Because there will be a cannibalization somewhere down the line of the current iPad range, which has got pretty large at the moment. I'm surprised there's still an iPad mini. And I think Pete will agree with me here. Amazingly enough, the current iPad mini is actually more powerful than some of the larger sized, just plain iPads. Which is they do have some weird decisions, Apple, sometimes. But it's, you know what? Apple's been about this kind of meh for the last few years. There's only so much you can do with the technology, let's be honest. The technology has grown so fast in the last 10, 12 years. Where to next? I mean, I keep seeing people saying that Apple are going to do a fold phone. That's not going to happen, trust me. I don't know if you've seen these other phones that are folding. Why would you want to... Where's the benefit? This one folds. No, Apple just don't do that. They will probably release Apple Glass. That's on the cards. But don't fret if you were waiting for Logic or Final Cut, because they're coming. And I think the other, just to finish this last point, the other glaringly obvious thing that didn't happen that's proving that we're going to be getting these 2 Pro apps, they haven't updated GarageBand again. They absolutely could give two shits about GarageBand right now. They've let it flounder completely. The only added packs. That's what Apple do. When they get bored of stuff or they're moving on to somewhere else, they cannibalize it, they let it die off, and it becomes a distant memory. It'll be something that'll just float around. I mean, it's a free app anyway. That's why I think it's only going to be about $9 to $20 kind of thing. Because the original GarageBand was $7 when it came out, and they dropped it for free. And yeah, the amount of love they're giving GarageBand is 0 on iOS, so that means the death knell. So, 26 minutes. I hope my ranty, ravey opinions didn't trouble you or sway you in some direction that you don't want to buy anything. Thank you for hanging out. We'll be back to the usual show tomorrow. Thanks, Pete, for letting me pop on the show and pull some stupid faces and jump around before my show. I hope you all have a very wonderful day. And I look forward to seeing you very soon and announcing something very special in the next coming days. Take care, everybody. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you later.